I've always had a strong distaste for Elderhaven Care Home. It was tucked away in a remote part of the country, with no public transportation and an absence of streetlights, making it quite an eerie place. Several years ago, I used to work for a care agency. One of the things I appreciated about the job was the freedom it offered. I had the opportunity to be assigned to various locations, and while it was a regular job that I was passionate about, I preferred not to be tied down to a single workplace. One of the advantages of working for the agency was that if I disliked a particular place, I could rest assured I'd never have to return. Most of my assignments were to care homes, so I spent a significant amount of time in subpar facilities. Even with my expectations set low, the places I was dispatched to still managed to disappoint me. You might expect a facility with a 1-star care rating to be shut down, but somehow, Elderhaven managed to deceive the inspectors. The Lone Star, accompanied by a phony label claiming "Quality and Assurance for the Elderly," was proudly displayed in the entrance hall. Elderhaven had a turnover of care workers, akin to burning through cheap cigarettes. Every time I arrived for a shift, a different woman in an Elderhaven uniform would greet me. I had heard numerous stories about employees never staying long. Even those who climbed the ranks to senior positions eventually departed for greener pastures. I couldn't blame them for leaving. Everybody who worked there hated the place. Everywhere my girlfriend and I went, we seemed to encounter former employees of Elderhaven. Rumors circulated that the place was haunted. It wasn't unusual for a care facility to have experienced its share of deaths, but Elderhaven's history was even darker. Before it became a care home, Elderhaven served as a mental facility for the hospital. There were stories that circulated of eerie voices echoing of the former mental patients, and shadowy figures wandering the halls, only to vanish into thin air. Some claimed to have witnessed a woman standing at a window in a male resident's bedroom. Ex-employees swore they saw a senior nurse enter a resident's room, only for her to disappear, only to find her on the next floor, denying she had been near the resident's room at all. Throughout my tenure at Elderhaven, a persistent sense of being watched accompanied me during my rounds. I initially attributed it to the stories circulating around, but deep down, I wasn't entirely convinced. Certain parts of the building elicited a chilling sensation, causing the hair on my arms to stand on end. In early 2012, my girlfriend excitedly shared the news that she had landed a job at Elderhaven. Despite my warnings and the unsettling stories we had heard, she remained undeterred. I had hoped those tales would dissuade her from working there, especially since I was the one primarily covering our expenses. She argued that I should be proud of her for securing a job that offered better financial stability. She was tired of working at McDonald's, dealing with low wages and unpredictable hours. I was indeed proud of her, but I couldn't help but wish she had found a job elsewhere, away from Elderhaven. "You honestly believe any other place would hire me without any experience?" she asked. "Who knows, but I just don't think you'll enjoy Elderhaven," I replied. "People say it's haunted, and you know how much you dislike being scared." She gave me a condescending look and crossed her arms. After 3 years together, we had finally moved in and were trying to make it on our own. Still, money troubles followed us, like the instance when my car needed repairs. Her parents had stepped in to help, but I could sense her desire for us to be financially independent so she wouldn't have to rely on them. Besides, they didn't have the highest opinion of me. I was older and lacked a college degree. They made me feel like they believed their daughter deserved someone better. To be honest, our relationship was spiraling downhill rapidly. We found ourselves trapped in a situation where we couldn't seem to live with or without each other. It was only a matter of time before one of us reached the breaking point. I assumed it would happen sooner rather than later, especially considering we were working at the same place. Kelsey, my girlfriend, had already completed a couple of shifts at the facility. She had a natural way with the residents. It was her 3rd training shift when I was assigned to the night shift at Elderhaven, specifically on the 1st floor where Kelsey was stationed. She leaned over the shoulder of her new friend, wearing her trademark mischievous half-smile. As a senior lady, who had an air of authority, gave me instructions to assist Gloria, a lady in a wheelchair, to her room. She didn't mention Gloria's room number, so I had to rely on Gloria knowing it herself. Gloria sat in her wheelchair, her fragile frame bundled in a soft, worn cardigan that had seen better days. Deep lines etched her face, telling the story of a long and eventful life. Her once vibrant eyes, now clouded with confusion, searched the surroundings, and when she saw me, her face fell. "Ma'am, how are you feeling?" I inquired gently, my tone filled with warmth. "I'm here to assist you to your room," I said softly. Her response was a faint murmur, her voice barely audible. I crouched down beside her and kindly requested her to repeat what she had said. "I'm waiting for Tim," she replied weakly. I glanced around and asked, "Is Tim another worker here? I'll go find him if you need." She shook her head sorrowfully. "He comes here at night," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He talks to me. He says I need to stay here or I won't see him. He helps me." "What does he help you with?" I inquired. "He helps me stay away from death. He lingers here," she whispered, gripping my hand tightly. "I'm warning you, leave while you still can, both you and the girl." I arrived home after Kelsey and she feigned sleep. By the next morning, she had vanished before I even opened my eyes. It felt like the perfect situation, akin to ships passing in the night, no need for conversation. However, a couple of weeks later, my company assigned me to work at Elderhaven again. I had pondered refusing shifts there, but my desire to keep an eye on Kelsey prevailed. That evening, upon my return home, I noticed a light in the kitchen, and Kelsey was there, busy preparing a meal for herself. I couldn't help but inquire about my own dinner, and her response was curt, laced with irritation. "I didn't know when you'd be back," she snapped. "You're not a child, you can make your own food, you know?" Feeling a bit defensive, I mentioned Gloria, the woman from the care home, and the man named Tim she kept talking about. "Tim's her son," Kelsey explained, her tone softening slightly. "Oh, I see. She kept saying he helps her and how she needs to stay there," I said, trying to make sense of Gloria's words. "Yeah, that's because she has dementia. They often talk in confusing ways," Kelsey replied, her expression sympathetic, as if trying to bridge the gap of understanding between us. One day at Elderhaven, as I helped Ted, a frail man with a walking stick, settle into his favorite armchair, he began to recount his time in the Vietnam War. His voice, though frail, carried the resonance of a man who had witnessed both the horrors of battle and the warmth of human connection. With a distant look in his eyes, he described a night during the war when he had stumbled upon a wounded Vietnamese soldier named Lee Wei, amidst the chaos of gunfire and the piercing cries of the jungle. Ted had made a split-second decision. He had pulled Lee Wei to safety, shielding him from the imminent danger that surrounded them, or so he thought. It turned out Lee Wei had been struck by a stray bullet. Ted remained with him until an American chopper arrived, but tragically, Lee Wei succumbed to his injuries before they could reach safety. The memory weighed heavily on Ted. It was evident in his troubled expression. "He talks to me sometimes," Ted said slowly. "Lee Wei?" I asked. "Yeah, he's angry with me, that I couldn't save him. And sometimes he comes in my room at night, looking at me and asking why." On that very same day, there was another gentleman named Barnaby who depended on his wheelchair for mobility. Barnaby had a reputation for being impolite to most of the staff, yet he showed a different side to me. Somehow I had managed to establish a connection with him, cherishing every moment I spent in his company. His frustration stemmed from a deep desire to communicate with his son, and he hated Elderhaven just as much as I did, leading him to vent his frustration on a female carer when I unexpectedly intervened. "Ah, a proper carer," he remarked as I entered the scene. The other caregiver had claimed that Barnaby was confrontational and had even threatened her with the buzzer he held in his hands. However, I found it hard to believe her account. She instructed me to help him into bed and swiftly left the room. With care, I assisted Barnaby into his chair instead, wrapping blankets around his upper torso and legs. He was always sensitive to the cold. "You're the only one who listens," Barnaby sighed, his voice heavy with frustration. "If I could walk out, I would and never come back. They'd never see me again." "I feel the same way, Barnaby," I replied, recognizing the depth of his yearning for understanding and connection. Kelsey had evicted me from the apartment. Fortunately, a close friend kindly offered me their couch to crash on for a few weeks until I could figure things out. I felt utterly lost, uncertain about how to handle my situation. On the bright side, I wouldn't have to endure Kelsey pretending to be asleep anymore. The following day during the handover, I learned that the process had begun to relocate Barnaby elsewhere, with plans for nursing care in consideration, although it would take some time. Despite my strong desire to inform him, I remained professional throughout our interactions. That evening, I was assigned to care for Ted, who appeared visibly unwell. After some time, he started vomiting black bile, prompting us to call for an ambulance. As I gathered the fourth sick bowl for evidence, I glanced into his shower room mirror and saw the ghostly image of a man. He bore a striking resemblance to Lee Wei. "Is he here?" Ted inquired. I nodded silently. "He's come to take me," he whispered. In that moment, a glimmer of light seeped through Ted's curtains, prompting me to leap to my feet, thinking the ambulance had arrived to take Ted. To my surprise, it was a man wielding a flashlight in the pitch-black night. I swiftly entered the security code and unlocked the door. He explained that a woman across the road had fallen between her bed and a cupboard, and wondered if someone from Elderhaven could assist. Regrettably, I informed him that we were not permitted to leave the premises, leaving me with a heavy sense of guilt for not being able to help. As he mentioned waiting for an ambulance, I empathetically shared that we were in the same situation, also awaiting their arrival. Upon the ambulance's eventual arrival, Ted resisted the attempts of the paramedics to approach him. After some effort, they succeeded in getting him out of his room. However, once outside, he started vomiting the dark bile violently, drenching both himself and the ambulance crew. Kelsey had been deliberately avoiding me for a while. I found myself scheduled for shifts at Elderhaven frequently in recent months. I didn't particularly want to be there, but it seemed like the only opportunity to have a conversation with her. Our schedules rarely aligned, and she was often either out of the apartment or working on shifts opposite to mine. I suspected she might have arranged her shifts to avoid overlapping with mine. Typical. In my quest to finally speak with Kelsey, I found her at work one day. I approached her, my heart pounding with anticipation. "Hey, Kelsey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk?" She looked surprised but nodded, a hint of relief in her eyes. "I wanted to talk to you too," she admitted. We decided to find a quiet room away from the bustling staff and residents. The air was heavy with the scent of antiseptic, and the hum of distant conversations filled the hallway as we stepped into a dark, secluded space. "I need to pick up my things, Kelsey, but I don't know when would be a good time," I stated hesitantly. "Look, I'm sorry about everything. I don't want you to go," Kelsey replied, her voice softening with sincerity. "You don't?" I asked, taken aback. "No," she said, her eyes searching mine. Kelsey leaned in and kissed me, her lips warm and familiar. I missed the way her body felt against mine. "Don't you just want to do something here?" she whispered, her tone playful. "Kelsey, we're at work. If we get caught—" I started, my voice hushed in urgency. "Live dangerously," she teased, pulling me closer and kissing me again, her touch igniting a spark of excitement. In the midst of our stolen moment, the sound of shattering glass and raised voices shattered the intimacy. My heart raced as I hurried out of the room, only to find Gloria, her eyes wild with fury, holding a pan menacingly over the head of the senior lady Kelsey had grown close to. "Gloria, stop!" I shouted, rushing forward, my hands trembling as I tried to intervene. With a swift swing, Gloria brought the pan down, narrowly missing the senior lady's head. Desperation fueled my actions. I managed to pull Gloria away, my arms straining under her weight, guiding her back into her wheelchair. She continued to glare at the senior, muttering vehemently, "She's the devil, you know. The devil in disguise." With the situation somewhat under control, I turned my attention to the senior lady. She looked shaken but unharmed, her eyes wide with fear. I reassured her, offering a comforting hand on her shoulder before returning my focus to Gloria. "Gloria, please calm down. No one here is the devil. We're all just people trying to live our lives," I said gently, my voice firm yet compassionate. But Gloria's eyes remained clouded with fear and suspicion. As I stayed by Gloria's side, attempting to ease her distress, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over me. Something deeper was at play here, something beyond the surface of a simple altercation. The mystery of Gloria's words and the tangled connections between the people in that room weighed heavily on my mind, leaving me with more questions than answers. I found it strange that I hadn't spotted Kelsey during the commotion. Assuming she had followed me to help defuse the situation, I searched the living room and the surrounding area but couldn't find a trace of her. Growing increasingly perplexed, I approached the senior lady, hoping she might have seen Kelsey. "Have you seen Kelsey? She was with me just before Gloria's outburst," I asked, my voice tinged with concern. The senior lady looked at me, her eyes filled with confusion. "No, I haven't seen Kelsey for weeks," she replied, her tone steady and unwavering. "But that can't be right," I protested, feeling a knot of worry tighten in my stomach. "She's scheduled for work today. I was with her moments before Gloria confronted you." "I'm not lying," the senior lady retorted firmly. "I don't know what you saw, but Kelsey hasn't been here. In fact, the manager is considering advertising her job." A chill ran down my spine as the gravity of her words sunk in. The situation grew more mysterious by the moment, leaving me with an unsettling sense of disbelief and a multitude of unanswered questions. Barnaby's departure didn't evoke the sadness I had anticipated. My thoughts were consumed by Kelsey. I couldn't help but wonder why I was the only one who seemed to see her. During Barnaby's farewell party, the manager approached me with concern etched on his face. "Hi, is everything all right?" "Kelsey hasn't been showing up for work lately," he inquired. Caught off guard, I fumbled for words. "Oh, she's been unwell," I replied, choosing to feign ignorance rather than delve into the inexplicable mystery of Kelsey's absence. When I entered the kitchen at home, I half expected to find Kelsey there, but the room was empty. Suddenly, 2 hands enveloped me, pulling me close, and I felt her lips against mine. "Kelsey, we need to talk," I said urgently, gently pulling away. "What about? I thought we sorted everything out," she replied, her voice soft, her eyes searching mine. "We have, but something's not adding up. The manager at work told me you haven't been showing up, yet I swear I saw you there yesterday." "Kelsey, what's going on?" I asked, my concern deepening. She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor before meeting mine again. "I met Tim one night. He did something for me, the same thing he does for Gloria." "Oh, and that senior lady? She's a devil in disguise, according to Tim. He wants to kill her, and I'm going to help him," she confessed, her words sending a chill down my spine. "What has Elderhaven done to you, Kelsey?" I asked, my voice filled with both desperation and confusion. Kelsey looked at me, her eyes flickering with a mixture of guilt and defiance. "It's not just Elderhaven," she whispered. "It's something beyond that, something I can't explain." I took a step closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "But we can find help. We can figure this out together." She shook her head, her expression haunted. "No, it's too late for me. Tim's plans are already in motion, and I'm trapped in this darkness." As the weight of her words settled over us, I felt a pang of helplessness. I wanted to save her from whatever sinister force had ensnared her, but I didn't know how. The mystery of Tim, Gloria, and the inexplicable events surrounding us seemed insurmountable. In the days that followed, Kelsey grew increasingly distant, disappearing for long stretches of time. I searched for answers, but the truth remained elusive. One night, she left a note. Her words, a heartbreaking farewell. I never saw Kelsey again, and the enigma of Elderhaven and the strange events that unfolded there remained a haunting memory, a mystery I could never fully unravel.